Members and guests, we have just one issue before us today, and that is House File 4437, the constitutional amendment. We do have an amendment to get the bill in the order I would like, and I would ask staff to walk us through the amendment to the DE to House File 4437. I'll move that amendment. I move the DE2 amendment, but we'll hear about it before we vote. Mr. Burris.
Mr. Chair and members, the H4437 DE2 amendment contains the constitutional amendment proposal as well as some implementation language around that. So Article 1 contains the language of the Constitution as it would be proposed to be changed. So Section 1 contains the dedication of a portion of the state's general sales tax that would be attributed by law to motor vehicle repair and replacement parts and allocate that solely to roads and bridges. It would also establish a limitation on changing the revenue allocation so that it couldn't be more frequent than every 6 years. And then, Mr. Chair and members, Section 2 contains both the ballot question and the title that would go on the ballot. And then moving to page 2, Article 2 sets up the implementation language that would go along with the amendment if it were ratified by the voters at the 2018 general election. One thing I'll note right at the outset is that all of this implementation language not only has a conditional effective date, but also a delayed effective date. You'll see that at the end of the amendment. So this would all go into effect starting July 1, 2020. So it would kick in for fiscal year 2021. The first section lays out definitions for a new chapter of statutes that would contain some centralized sections around transportation finance. Section 2 would set up the revenue allocation of the newly constitutionally dedicated funds. And this split would be 4.5% going to an account for the Small Cities Assistance Program, the remainder going into the Highway User Tax Distribution Fund. As you may recall, that fund has a constitutional formula that goes along with it that then distributes any dollars going into it to both state and local road systems. So it's the county state aid, municipal state aid, and trunk highway systems. Both sections 2 and 3 then further address that portion of dollars that go into the trunk highway fund so that the trunk highway fund dollars would go into a new account being established, a construction account, and the uses of the funds in that account would be limited to construction, reconstruction, improvement projects on the trunk highway system. Section 4 provides for the monthly allocation of the revenues. So this would be directive to the Department of Revenue. Again, this has a delayed effective date, so this allocation method wouldn't actually go into effect right away. There's also a phase-in provision that would take place first. So that brings us actually to Section 5, which is the phase-in language. So this establishes a monthly deposit of revenues that would go towards that allocation of funds to the small cities and Highway User Tax Distribution Fund. And there's a phase-in schedule that's set up in this language so that starting in fiscal year 2021, 60% of the attributed revenue from motor vehicle replacement parts would be allocated, and that increases by 10 percentage points each fiscal year so that it hits 90% in fiscal year 2024, and then would be fully phased in fiscal year 2025. And that aligns with the constitutional language that establishes full phase-in by that fiscal year 2025 date. And then Section 6 contains a reviser's instruction that goes along with the centralization of some statutes into a new chapter of law around transportation finance. And then finally, Section 7, the conditional and delayed effective date I touched on earlier.
Thank you, Mr. Burris. I'd like you now to turn to the spreadsheet that's in your packets, and I'd like to ask Mr. Lee to step us through the spreadsheet. Mr. Lee.
Mr. Chair and members, I'm looking at the one-page legal-size spreadsheet that is in portrait, labeled House File 4437 DE2 Auto Parts Constitutional Amendment Revenue Estimates. The first few lines show the current statutory dedication as the result of Chapter 3, Session Law 2017 last year. So essentially that is what is in current law right now, with the total at line 7. Currently, Auto Parts has a transfer amount to the Highway User Tax Distribution Fund on line 2. The percent of auto parts that is going to Highway User Tax Distribution Fund under current law is on line 10. That's at 12% in the current biennium and about 54% in the tails. And I will note that revenue estimates and budget forecasts only go out for 4 years. So from fiscal 2022 on, these estimates are just using static numbers. Then on line 14 starts the DE2 amendment. So on line 5 would show the amount of auto parts that would be dedicated to transportation sources, with the actual impact to the general fund being highlighted on line 16, showing the 5-year phase-in. So in fiscal 2021, the general fund impact would be about $21 million, and then that would ramp up as more of the auto parts was captured for transportation purposes only. Then on lines 20 and 21 show the statutory distribution between small cities and the HUTD. And again, these numbers are only above base spending.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions about the mechanics of the bill? Not looking for testimony for or against at this point, but just I want to make sure members understand how the bill works. Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious, as I look at the statutory implementation on page 6 of the bill, will then, it seems to me then that the constitutional language locks this all in 2024, 2025. The constitutional language does not lock in each individual phased-in step then, does it? Could a future legislature, say in 2022 or 2023, interrupt or, change this language during those 4, 5, or 6 years?
Thank you, Representative Drazkowski. That is correct. The ramp-up is part of the statute. The constitutional language only notes 2024, and that is when we would be constitutionally dedicating 100% of these revenues. You're right, Representative Drazkowski, that a future legislature can change statute. But also note that there's also the possibility that the Article 2 of this bill could be vetoed. That is part of the governor's ability to do that. He, however, cannot, as you know, veto the constitutional amendment itself. So, yes, there are risks and opportunities involved in statute, but that's true with any statute we pass. Any other questions about the mechanics of the bill? Representative Bernardi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering how this compares to what currently we passed last year with statutory language to be put auto parts, but not constitutionally dedicated.
Thank you, Representative Bernardi. If we go back to the spreadsheet,
Yep.
You will see on line 10 of the spreadsheet, as Mr. Lee stated, that's current law. So in current law, next year in 2020, we'd go to 54%. Then it actually drops to 52% of these revenues going forward. And that would, without any further changes in statute, that 52% would carry through. So you can see on line 10 that the 52% number carries through all the way to 25.
Okay, and so, Mr. Chair, did we actually transfer all that money, or did we leave a bunch of money not transferred for transportation last year?
In the current biennium, we're only dedicating 12% of the revenue.
Okay.
And the 54% and 52% figures are in the tails. So they're in the budget forecast, but of course, budget forecasts are potentially changed by statute.
Okay, and so, Mr. Chair, so this full $255,000 actually went to transportation this year? Did we actually transfer that amount of money? Or you're saying we only transferred 12%?
I will turn to Mr. Lee to
Okay,
make sure
thank
you
you.
get your question answered and accurately.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and Representative Bernardi, no, the 255 number on line 9 shows what Department of Revenue estimates is the amount of the general sales tax that's attributed to auto parts. So that's the total amount. So the only part of auto parts that went to the Highway User Tax Distribution Fund is on line 2 at 31 million a year for fiscal 18 and 19. And then what is set in the tails is at 145 million in 2020 and 2021. So that's the amount that's going to HUTD. The rest is still going to the general fund.
Okay, just one follow-up.
Representative Bernardi.
One quick follow-up. So we couldn't have put any more into transportation. We put everything we possibly could based on statutory for this the 2018.
Mr. Lee.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair and Representative Bernardi, no, the auto parts was just a set number, so it was a result of a budget target rather than the total amount of auto parts that was available to the general fund.
And Mr. Chair, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Representative Bernardi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we could have put more money, but the targets were set that we actually didn't put more money in. Is that what?
Ms. Representative Bernardi, we could put the whole general fund into transportation if we wanted to. Probably is not going to happen. We arrived at these amounts based on our target last year and our target in the tails. So we're taking money out of the general fund currently, statutorily, but it's nowhere near 100% of this particular resource.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.